Shalom. So, hopefully everybody can hear me. We are doing Genesis 29 tonight. So let's start. So Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. Now Jacob lifted his feet and went to the land of the people of the east. Um, Vayisa Yaakov Raglav Vayelech Artza B'nei Kedem. So yeah, it is. He lifted his feet. I've never seen that before. Um, yeah, I'm not sure this term has ever is ever used anywhere else in the Bible. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it before. Literally, so Yisa is well, this is the consecutive imperfect of nun sin aleph, which is to raise, to lift up. Um, Lifting your eyes is a common thing in the Bible. Lifting your legs, I honestly don't think I've ever seen that before. And that's the word you're on when I show up. Yisa. Okay. I have no idea why that word is strange, but okay. Um. So right, to lift or to raise. Yaakov obviously is the name. Braglav, his legs. There is no difference in Hebrew between the various parts of legs. It's all regel. Same thing with um, hand. It's all yad. It's not, you know, there aren't specific in biblical Hebrew. There aren't specific. Vayelech, and he went. Artsa, so the hey at the end, unlike what they're saying here, is not again the third person feminine singular. It This is the directional hey, so towards the land of Bnei Kedem, and that's also an interesting term. So Bnei Kedem is literally the sons of the early. Kedem means early. It also means east. Um, yeah, because of that association with forward, right? Kadima is forward. Um, yeah, so B'nai Kedem. That's interesting. B'nai Kedem, I guess you could also translate it as ancient ones. That's interesting. Okay, next verse. And he looked and saw a well in the field, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. A large stone was on the well's mouth. Um, there he saw a well in the open country with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large, and he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it, because that from that well they would water the flocks, and a huge rock was upon the mouth of the well. Okay. Veyar vehine be'er basade והנה שם 3 עדרי צאן רובצים, sorry, עליה, כי מן הבאר ההיא ישקו העדרים והאבן gedola al pi habe'er. Interesting. Okay. Um, so vayar, and he looked, right? He saw, or resh aleph hey, vehine, and yeah, I usually do translate hine. It's an interjection. I usually um, do translate it as behold. Um, yeah, it is an interjection. So there's definitely exclamations here. There's two hines, which I guess happens. Be'er means well. Ba sadeh, there is an article in the vocalization there. In the field, sadeh is field. Vehine, and behold again, sham, there. Shlosha edrei tzon. Shlosha means three. Eder is a flock. Yeah, it's a flock. And tzon usually is sheep. I think it can be any small domestic farm animal. Small cattle, sheep, and goats flock, right? So sheep, goats, small. So the real differentiation that the Bible usually makes is between son and behema. Son is small um, animals, and behemot are large animals. Okay, rovtzim. So usually I translate that as crouch, resh bet tzaddik. It's the same word um, in Genesis where God says to Cain um, that sin is crouching at the door. Right. That's the same word here. And if you're paying attention to miluim and chaser, um, almost all of these are all written chaser. If you're paying attention to that. Aleha, so this is preposition with the ayin, right? Upon her, meaning the be'er. Be'er is feminine. Yeah. So they were crouching by it, literally upon it, but obviously they weren't on it. Um, Ki mean, so ki means because, mean from habe'er hahi, so that particular well, right? Habe'er hahi. The pronoun is just being used there to be very specific. Yashku ha'edarim. Um, so that's interesting. There, and I think Rashi actually comments on this. The verse doesn't say who is doing the lahashkot. So this is in the causative, the hefil of mash, mashke. It's hey shin kuf, I believe. Shin kuf hey. Okay. Which is to drink, and yashku is the hefil, it's the causative of that. So cause to drink. So give to when you give somebody something to drink, you're mashke them. So, but it doesn't say who is doing it, right? Who does the watering? Okay. Um, so the flocks were watered. Some it doesn't say who did the watering of the flocks. Ve'ha'even gedola, interesting. And the stone, there is an article there. It's not a stone. And so, yeah, I would probably agree that I would probably translate this as the stone that was on top of the well was great. It's kind of assuming that there is a stone. So ha Evan, the stone, the large stone. Ha Evan ha Evan gedola. Gedola is the adjective Um, kind of expected the it to be Ha'even Hagedola. I'm not sure why there isn't a an article on the adjective. I believe adjectives usually take an article as well. Al pi haber. So al pi, I mean, on the mouth of, but usually, I mean that means um, in front of or on top of at at the entrance of, right, haber of the well. Okay, now all the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from the well's mouth, water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. And all the flocks would gather there, and they would roll the rock off the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and then they would return the rock onto the place of the well to its place. ונאספו שמה כל העדרים וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר, והשקו את הצאן, והשיבו את האבן על פי הבאר למקומה. Okay. So Asaf, Aleph Samech Hey, means to gather. It can also be harvest, right? So Pentecost is called Chag HaAsif. I believe. I hope I have that right. The harvest, um, the harvest festival. So Venesfu, this is the nifal. It's the passive. So would gather, would be gathered. Shama there. So sham means there. Shama, the hey again at the end is the directional hey. So towards there. Chol ha'adarim, all the flocks. V'galalu, again, it doesn't say who, but yeah, got so golel means to roll, right? When you roll the Torah scroll, it's called Galila. Gal is a wave, as in a wave in the ocean, and actually, um, like a microwave oven in modern Hebrew is called a mikrogal. Um, so galalu, they would roll et ha'evan me'al pi haber, right? The stone again, ha'evan, um, me'al, right, from the mouth of the well, haber. Vehishku, again, this is the hefil. It's not saying who's doing it. Et hatzon, right, the sheep. Veheshivu, so heshivu, the root is shov, shin vav bet. Um, and it's in the hefil, it's in the causative, right? And so they would put back, they would cause to be back. Et ha'even al pi habe'er, the stone onto the mouth of the well, limkoma. So makom is a place. It usually is written bemilui. Here it's written bechisaron, which is a little strange. And there's a dagesh in the hay at the end to tell you that it's an aspirated hay, which tells you to her place, right? Because Even is feminine, so it's limkoma, to the stone's place, as opposed to mekoma being just feminine. If it didn't have that dagesh there. Um, yeah. Okay, next verse. And Jacob said to them, my brethren, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. Jacob asked the shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? We're from Haran, they replied. I hope you couldn't hear that, but you probably could. Somebody was honking out there. And Jacob said to them, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. Vayomer lahem Yaakov, achai me'ayin atem, vayomru meharan anachnu. Okay, so Vayomer, this is the less intensive way of speaking, Aleph Memresh, lahem, to them, Yaakov, Jacob, achai, so ach means brother, achim means brothers, achi means my brother singular, achai means my brothers in the plural. So achai, my brothers, me'ayin atem. So ayin is itself a question word of where, but me'ayin, from where, right? From where? Atem. And so since there is no present tense of the verb to be in Hebrew, oftentimes the pronoun is used in that sense, and that's how it's being used here. Are you, right? Vayomru, and they said, Meharan anachnu. So me, we, from Haran, anachnu. And again, the pronoun is being used to stand in for the verb to be. Okay. Verse. Then he said to them, do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him. He said to them, do you know Lavan, Nahor's grandson? Yes, we know him, they answered. And he said to them, do you know Lavan, the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him. Vayomer lahem, ha yidatem et Lavan ben Nahor, vayomru yadanu. So he said, lahem, to them, ha yidatem. So the article at the beginning of a word turns into a question. So yadatem means all y'all in the plural know him, and this is the more intimate way of knowing. Da'at. Ha yadatem. So do you know? Right? Yadatem means you do know. Ha yadatem means do you know? Et Lavan, direct marker, Lavan is his name, Ben Nahor, the son of Nahor. And yes, while any descendant can be called Ben Nahor, I'm not quite sure why they decided to specify the grandson of Nahor, but they did. Vayomru, and they said, Yadanu. It is in the perfect, so maybe we have known him, or yeah, I mean it makes sense. It isn't in the present tense in the Hebrew though. Yeah, and in modern Hebrew you wouldn't really use that word for do you know somebody. Um, yeah, you wouldn't really use that in modern Hebrew. Okay, partially because I mean in the Bible it is used euphemistically for intimate relations. Um, so he said to them, "Is he well?" And they said, "He is well." And look, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." And he said to them, "Are things going well with him?" And they said, "Things are going well. And behold, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep." Uh, not sure why Rashi is saying there's an accent on the aleph. The accent is on the bet, and the targum renders. The former is the present tense, whereas the latter is the present. Oh, he's saying it's ba'a, not bo'a. She, right? It's okay. So, um, vayomer lahem hashalom lo, vayomru shalom, vehine Rachel bito ba'a, and that's what Rashi was talking about. Bo'a would be in the um, so they're saying it's the participle. That would be bo'a. So if we were to do bet vav aleph is the root, and it's in the simple form, right? So we're talking feminine. Ba'a, um, they have an asterisk there. I'm not sure why. It doesn't say what the asterisk is for. The ending is usually unstressed in spoken language. Oh, yeah. I guess in when you're speaking, you usually don't really say ba'a. Um, yeah. Um, the participle. Oh, yeah. The participle is ba'a. Oh, the past tense is also ba'a. Oh, okay. I kind of assumed it would be bo'a. I guess not. So yeah, what's going on here is that while they are written, it appears exactly the same way. The difference is in the um, stressing of the vowels. So yeah, so he's saying it is the participle. Is that what Rashi's saying? The accent is on the aleph, ba, and the Targum renders atia, right? And Rachel came. The accent on the first syllable on the bell, and the Targum renders um, in verse 9. Okay, so let's look at we're on Genesis. This is 29, right? And so here, um, the Targum Onkelos. When he says Targum, he means Onkelos. So Atya, right? Brate Atya, she's coming as the participle. And in verse 9, Ba'a, and the Targum Onkelos says, V'hava kad chaza Yaakov yat Rachel bat Lavan achuha de'ime ve'yat, right? So this is in the past tense. So it's a question of where the stress is. Yeah, Targum Onkelos. Targum Onkelos is estimated to be from around the year the 3rd century, I believe. So yeah. he's translating it that way. Okay, we skipped all the way to there. Sorry about that. Vayomer lahem, and he said to them, Hashalom. Right, again, the hey is the article there is being used to turn the sentence into a question. Hashalom lo, right? Is he well? Right? To drishat shalom is to ask how somebody is doing, um, to seek their shalom, right? Yeah, their well-being. So hashalom lo, how is he really? Is he well? Um, does he have peace? Veyomru shalom, and they said shalom. So yeah, he's fine. Vehine, and behold, Rachel bito, Rachel his daughter, right? Bat means daughter, bito means his daughter. Ba, um, im hatzon, with the sheep or the small animals. Okay, 29:7. So even how it's written in the vocalizations, you have to tell from context whether in the present tense or in the past tense. Um, and what Rashi points out is that the Targum Onkelos in verse 6 uh, translates it in the present tense, and in verse 9 translates it in the past tense. Okay. Then he said, look, it is still high day, early in the day. It is not time for the cattle to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go feed them. Go and feed them. Okay. Look, he said, the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to the pastures. And he said, the day is yet long. It is not the time to take in the livestock, water the sheep, and go pasture. Okay. Vayomer, so and he said, Hen, look, yeah, look. Um, I mean, it's the interjection. Hine is the one that's more behold, I guess. I mean, there isn't much difference between hen and hine. Od hayom gadol. So od means more, but here it means still, yet. Hayom gadol. So, hmm. The day is big. I think it's clear that he's saying there's still a lot of time left in the day, right? We there's still a lot of, yeah, there's still daylight. Maybe, I mean, that makes sense. Literally, it says the day is big, right? Gadol. Lo et ha'asef. So it's not et. It means moment or time, right? It's not the time ha'asef of gathering. Asef can also mean harvest, right? So to take in the sheep. Ha-mikne. And so mikne literally comes from kufnun hay, which is to purchase. But yeah, from kana. But yeah, it refers to cattle or possessions or livestock. Um, yeah, I think cattle is probably how I would translate it. Um, Hashku hatson ulhu ru'u. Okay, so these words are all in the imperative in the command form. So hashku is the command form of the hefil, of the causative of um, drinking, right? So water, give to drink, right? Hatson, the small animals. Ulhu, so this is the command form of to walk or to go, right? Ulhu, ru'u. And so this is resh aleph, resh, sorry, ayin hey. Um, so ro'eh is a shepherd. Um, as a verb, it means to tend to cause, to graze, right? Be a keeper, I guess. Shepherd, right? Um, go, go and be shepherds. Obviously, there is um, obviously there is the um, who obviously there is a, I mean, an aspect of feeding them, but literally it's just saying guard them, be be a shepherd to them. Yeah, and yes, I mean literally the word is similar to the word ra, which means evil. But I mean, if you're going to try to make that connection, it would show up in all kinds of weird places. I wouldn't do it myself. Okay, verse 8. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and they have rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Then we water the sheep. We can't, they replied, until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep. And they said, we cannot do that until all the flocks are gathered together, and they will roll the rock off the mouth of the well, and we shall then water the sheep. And Rashi is saying that's because the stone was so large, as it said earlier. Okay. Vayomru lo nuchal ad asher ye'esfu kol ha'adarim וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר והשכינו הצאן. And they said, all of these are all Omer's, lo nuchal. So Yechol is Yud Chaf Lamed is to be able to. Yeah, Yud Chaf Lamed, to have the power to be able to. I mean, it's used a lot in modern Hebrew. I don't know how much. I mean, 192 times. Yeah, in 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 biblical Hebrew. Um, and they're saying it's kal imperfect. So let me just take a look here of Yehol Yud Chaf Lamed. Mm, So the first person Nichol, Nuchal. I'm I'm going to have to disagree with them and say that this is it Hufal or Pual? Let's try the Hufal. Nuchal, yeah. So they they have it as the call. I'm not sure I've ever seen them mark something as hufal. So hufal is the passive causative. Uh, so stem hofal, they have it here. Is the passive form of the hefil, and it generally expresses the passive form of the meaning of a verb in the hefil stem, right? So the passive of the cause of the um, causative. Note: it is recommended to always check a dictionary or lexicon for the meaning of a specific verb because this stem may express many different kinds of actions in different contexts. Okay? Uh, I mean, I think it's pretty clear what it means here. Uh, Nuchal, uh, we can't, right? Um, we are not able to, but uh, yeah, we have not been made able to, maybe. Ad asher yasfu, right? So ad means until, asher means that. So until that, right? Until the time. Yes, yasfu, and so again, this is it's the nifal, it's the passive of asaf, which means to gather or harvest. So are gathered, right? Kol ha'adarim, all of the flocks. Vegalalu et ha'evan, and they roll, right? And while it is in the past tense, I mean, in the Hebrew, this is just the normal way you would say something like this. Et ha'evan mal pi ha'be'er, right? We have this before. Vehishkinu, right? And we water, we give to drink. Hatzon. Um, we've had all these words before. Okay, 9. Now, while he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. Okay? While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Odenu medaber imam, ורחל באה עם הצאן אשר לאביה, כי היא רואה היא. Okay. So odenu, right? Od means still. Odenu, I mean, the normal way of saying it. I don't know what really distinguishes odenu from od. Did they distinguish between them? They didn't. So they just have it to od. Let's see how many times it's odenu. If you look down here, odena is once, odeni is twice, odenu, right? 16 times. Abraham odenu omed, right? In Genesis 18:22. Okay, so odenu medaber imam. He was still speaking with them. It's the medaber is the participle that of now. It's actually switched to the more intensive form of speaking. All of the actual words before were amar, aleph memresh. Imam with them. Verachel ba'a, right? Like we said before, this is the past tense. Im hatzon, with the sheep. Asher la'aviha, which belonged to her father, right? Asher la'aviha. Av means father. Aviha means her father. Ki ro'a he. So again, we have to understand this because of the cantillation. I mean, the vocalizations. Um, there's no vav there. Um, ro'a, like I said, it's to uh, it's the verb is to be to be a shepherd, I guess. Yeah. She was a shepherd, right? And he is the pronoun being used as as the verb to be in the present tense. And again, we know that it's he as opposed to who, even though it's spelled with a vav. This happens a lot in the Bible, where um, he is spelled the exact same way as who. Um, hey, vav, aleph. Um, yeah. And that's why, especially when people talk about um, the letter vav in biblical Hebrew, they will say that it's a silent. It can be a silent letter. Okay. Verb, verse 10. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Interesting. Um, when Laban, when Yaakov, Jacob, saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Interesting. I'm guessing the actual Hebrew doesn't talk about um, uncle. Um, and it came to pass when Yaakov saw Rachel, or Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob drew near and rolled the rock off the mouth of the well, and he watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. He's not saying his mother's brother. Interesting. ויהי כאשר ראה יעקב את רחל בת לבן אחי אמו ואת צאן לבן אחי אמו ויגש יעקב ויגל את האבן מעל פי הבאר וישק את צאן לבן אחי אמו. So each time it's specifying that Laban is Achi Imo, right? The his mother's brother. Okay, Vayehi, and it was Kasher when Ra'ah, right, saw. Um, the Hey often absconds but doesn't always. Yaakov, Jacob, Rachel, the daughter of Lavan, Achi Imo, and this is I mean, keeps on saying Achi Imo. Ach means brother. Achi Imo is his mother's brother. Yeah. Ve'et son Lavan, right? Um, and I have to say, in Hebrew, it doesn't. This doesn't sound so particular as much as it sounds. Doesn't sound so particular as much as it sounds poetic in the repetition because that is how you write poetry in Hebrew, is with alliteration and repetition. Okay. Vetson Lavan Achi Imo. Vayigash, so I guess it's hey Nun Gimelshin? Nun Gimelshin, right? To approach, to reach, um, yeah, to go up to. Um, there is, I mean, I think a bit. Yigash is to approach, might be the right word to use for it. I mean, you can use your concordance there, but he went, he approached. That's how I would translate it. Yaakov vayagel, right, and he rolled et ha'even ma'al pi haber. We've had all these words. Vayashk, right, and he watered it. Um, et son lavanachim. We've had all these words before. Okay, next verse. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. One of the more controversial verses of the Bible. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. And Jacob kissed Rachel and he raised his voice and wept. And I have to say that the rabbis are very, very adamant that it is a bad idea to read this literally. Um, this was a spiritual kiss, is the teaching of um, of the rabbis, and you can read Rashi and all that. So Vayashk Yaakov lerachel vayisa et kolo vayevk. So Vayishak. Um, so Neshek Nun Shin Kuf is to drink. I mean to kiss. It does. I mean, you could. I mean, without the without the vocalization and context, you could say this is the same word as neshek, right? Which I mean, hashaka, which is to give to drink, and it certainly alliterates, which is another point towards a less than literal reading. Vayishak Yaakov, he kissed, is how I would translate it. Yaakov lerachel, interesting. I'm not sure it always takes a lamed there, but literally it's he kissed to her. Okay. Vayisa et kolo vayev. And he raised his voice. Um, yeah, I mean it's literally he raised his voice. However you wanna translate that. Vayev. So bet chaf hey is to weep or to cry. Um, and it is a sad cry, bewail, weep. Yeah, it's used quite a bit in the Bible, 116 times. Next verse, unless anybody has questions. Okay, and Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. So she ran and told her father. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rivka. So she ran and told her father. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And Rashi's saying Achi Abiha, which we'll get to, is is he's saying it's not literal. So Vayaged Yaakov LeRachel Ki Achi Aviha Hu V'chi Ben Rivka Hu V'taratz V'taged LaAviha. Okay, so Vayaged is, I mean, it's the consecutive imperfect. Which tense you want to put that in? I don't know what to tell you, um, because that seems to be the disagreement between the different translations. Is what which tense? Um, okay. Um, and honestly, I don't know which tense to put it in. This is Vayaged. Um, um, yeah, Yaakov. Oh, uh, the verb is to lahagid, right? Like Haggadah, like Magid on Passover, to tell, to relate, over. Yeah, LeRachel Yaakov. So he told. I would probably put it in the present tense actually. Um, yeah, I probably would translate it myself in the present tense. Ki achi aviha hu. So again, the pronoun is being used as the verb to be, right? And literally, this is saying that he is her father's brother. Obviously, he doesn't mean actual brother; he means relative, and that's why they translate it as relative. Um, and again, it makes sense in the Hebrew to use the same word over and over again with different meanings. That is a very normal thing to do in Hebrew. And the key, it does mean since or because, but here it's more that or please. Yeah. Or it is. Yeah. Vechi ben Rivka hu, right? And he is the son of Rivka. I don't know why they decided to say a son. Well, I guess that there isn't a an article, so Ben Rivka. The Taratz, right? Larutz, Resh Vav Tzaddik is to run. Um, the Taged is the feminine form of again Yaged. Here, same word. Le'aviha, to her father. Next verse. Then it came to pass when Lavan heard the report about Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Um, as soon as Lavan heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Did I miss that in the previous one? I don't think so. Hopefully not. Okay. Now it came to pass when Lavan heard the report of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran towards him and he embraced him and he kissed him and he brought him into his house. He told Lavan all of these things. Um, and there's a lot of Rashis. I'm not going to do all of those. Vehi kishmoa Lavan et Shema Yaakov, interesting, ben achoto, ve'aratz likrato, ve'habek lo, ve'inashek lo, ve'yaviehu el beito, ve'yisaper lelavan et kol hadevarim ha'ele. Huh. Okay, so Vayehi Kishmoa, and it was when he heard, right? Ki shmoa. Um, that preposition chaf is like as, right? Um, so I guess you could say as he heard. Ki shmoa. This is the infinitive of shin mem ayin, which is to hear or listen. Lavan et Shema Yaakov. So this is, I don't know how many times it's used in this exact way in the Hebrew, but it is being alliterative and repetitive, right? The news of Yaakov, the things to be heard, Shema Yaakov. This is a construct of Shema, right, which is to hear, and Yaakov. Ben Achoto, the son of his sister, V'yaratz likrato, and he ran, and this is the infinitive of a very strange verb um, in the Hebrew, kuf resh aleph taf, which is to greet or to meet, right? Um, really to greet. And yes, it is very strange for something to be written with four roots in the Hebrew, but um, it is, and this is really ancient, and it shows up in a lot of texts. So, um, Vayihabek, so het bet kuf in modern Hebrew is a hug or an embrace, I guess you could say. Sabak, clasp, embrace. How many times does it show up? 13 times. Let's see what they say. Late Hebrew, Mandean, North Syriac, Arabic. To collect one's possessions. Interesting. Um, I guess to take a hold of. Vaychabeklo, and he, no thank you, and he embraced him or hugged him. Veinashek lo, again, the neshek is, um, and this one is um, clearly kissing, not uh, watering. But again, the alliteration is there. And he kissed him. Vayaviehu. So this is the hefil. It's the causative of lavo, to come or to go. Right? Really to come. To cause to come is to bring. El, preposition with the aleph. Beito, his house. Veyisaper, so samech pei resh is the verb to tell. It can also be to count. A sipur is a story. A sefer is a book. Mispar is a number. So, however you want to do that, he told him, he, I don't know. But it's interesting. It's like, so I guess Yaakov told Lavan all of these things. Which things? Not sure which things all these things are. Le Lavan, right? To Lavan. Et kol hadavarim ha'ele. All of these things, these particular things, ha'ele. Um, I guess it must be the things that happened during that day. Let's see what Rashi says. He told Vesaper Lavan that he had come only because he was compelled to do so because of his brother Esav, and that they had taken his money from him. So that's from Bereshit Rabbah, the Genesis Rabbah. Vesaper. So all of these things is what happened with um, with Esav. Obviously, this is, I mean, it's the midrash. Okay, next verse. And Lavan said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." and he stayed with him for a month. Then Lavan said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." Uh, oh, and they put a thing in the middle of it. After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month. Okay, I mean that's a weird versification. Um, and Laban said to him, "Indeed, you are my bone and my flesh." And so he stayed with him a full month. Vayomer lo Lavan, ach atzmi ubesari ata, vayeshev imo chodesh yamin. Interesting. So Vayomer lo, this is the less intensive way of speaking, right? Lavan and ach. So they're translating it as surely. Ach, Rashi usually says is lashon miut. It's a limiting language, right? Usually translated as only. Um, let's see what he says here. Mata in lilos habaita hol in be'atcha klon ela mipnei kurva. So Rashi's kind of saying it's only because of you being flesh and blood that I'm doing this. Yeah. So, which makes sense to me because ach is only. I usually translate it as only. I would probably translate this as only because you are my brother. Yeah, that's how I would translate it. Etzem means essence and thereby means bone. So atzmi. Um, I mean, literally atzmi could even be myself, right? Atzmaut in modern Hebrew is independence, but atzmi, my bone, ubasari, and basar is flesh, right? So flesh and bone, flesh and blood makes sense as well. I would say that's just as good. And again, the pronoun is being used as the verb to be. Vayeshev imo. So Vayeshev, again, this gets into the 2-letter versus 3-letter root thing. Yud, shin, bet is to stay or to settle. So Vayeshev imo, and he stayed with him. Chodesh yamim, a um, a month of days, literally. A month of time makes sense. Yeah. It is, I mean, it's in the construct. Chodesh Yamim, a month. I might even just translate it as a month. I mean, it could have said Chodesh, but I understand it's saying Chodesh Yamim. And Chodesh is written Bechisaron, which is a tiny bit surprising. 15. Then Lavan said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be?" Lavan said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." And Lavan said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you work for me gratis?" I'm not sure I would use the word gratis, but okay. I'm guessing the word is hinam. Yeah, not sure why they decided to use gratis. Uh, Tell me what your wages shall be. Um, and yeah, we won't do the Rashis, but okay, let's do the Rashis. So he's saying hahi is the is a question word, and that's how Unclus does it. And that's why they have the question mark there, and I would agree with them. And actually, that's how they did it as well. Um, Va'avadatani, Hebrew, like Vetavdani, and likewise any word that is in the past tense. So he's explaining the vav hafuch, right? The um, that when there's a vav, it becomes the consecutive, and it can be flipping. Right? So vayomer Lavan leYaakov, and he said to him, "Hachi achi ata." So yes, I mean, even though chaf and het are different letters, there is the poetic um, alliteration there. So I wouldn't necessarily say that ha, because I should have said hachi ahi, right? I don't know if you can hear the difference there. Hachi ahi, the het is more um, is is considered more in aspirated, I guess you would say. Ata. So the hey at the beginning of um, turns it into a question, and that's where the question mark comes from. He is because, right? So hahi, is it because kind of achi ata, you are my brother literally, and again the pronoun is being used for the verb to be. um, it's being used a lot for the verb to be in this whole text, which is, yeah, I guess a little unusual. um, the avadatani. So the root is ein bet dalid, which means to serve. It is the same root for slave as well, right? So to serve, to work. Avoda also means worship, right? Hinam, so hinam for free. Um, Gavaldik, I wish I had you to study Chumash with my son. Hey, how you doing, Binyamin? Um, well, all my videos are here. Va'avedatani Hinam, right? So uh, work for me for nothing, for free, right? Sinat Hinam is baseless uh, hatred. Ahavat Hinam is free love, right? So avadatani chinam, would you work for me for nothing? Hagida li. So this is again, you got we had before was to relate. I usually translate it. It is like magid on Passover. Hagida li. So tell me, ma maskur maskurtecha. Um, the root there is sin chaf resh. So schar is rent or wage, um, or can be reward, right? But so maskurtecha is your wages. What are, I would almost want to translate this as what is your rate? Maskurtecha. Um, Mascoret, I guess is Mascoret is a wage. Let's see. Yeah, Mascoret wages from Scar, and it shows up 4 times in the Bible. First time here. Okay. Verse 16. Now Lavan had two daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Now Lavan had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Now Lavan had two daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. וללבן שתי בנות, שם הגדולה לאה, ושם הקטנה Rachel. Okay, so Lavan, and Lavan had, yeah, and literally two Lavan, and the to be is implied there. Shte benot, right? Two daughters. Shem Hagedolah, the name of the older one, right? The literally largest, but larger, but um, it's obviously in age. Leah, right? Again, the to be is inferred. Vishem Haketana Rachel. And so this juxtaposition of Gadol and Katan happens a lot in the Bible. Gadol being large, Katan being small. Okay, next verse. Leah's eyes were delicate or weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. Leah had weak or delicate eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Leah's eyes were tender, but Rachel had beautiful features and a beautiful complexion. And Rashi brings the famous. It's from the Talmud that uh, so that it was kind of fated. It was beshert that um, the older daughter would marry the older son. So Rachel would marry Esav, and Leah would marry Yaakov. And because of knowing who Esav was, Rachel cried a lot, and that's why it says her eyes were rakot. Um, yeah. Ve'ene Leah rakot, ורחל הייתה יפת תואר ויפת מראה. So, and the eyes of Leah, right? A naim is a plural of eyes, and it's in the construct with the name Leah. Rakot. So, rakat, rach, tender, delicate, soft. Let's see. Is Arabic and Aramaic is also soft. Yeah. Yeah. I guess delicate is how I would probably translate it. Verachel haita yafat tor v'yafat mar'eh. So yafa means beautiful. It's actually a common name in modern Hebrew. And it's being put in construct form. Yafat Tor shows up. Eshet Yafat Tor is actually the beautiful woman who gets who is taken captive during a war. Literally, beautiful woman. Tor, they're translating as form. Rashi says Tor. This is the form of the countenance, similar to Isaiah 44:13, and So if you want to take a look there. But Yafat Mar'eh also, like, Mar'eh's appearance. So she was beautiful. And this doubling of this doubling really, you could actually just translate it as she was very beautiful. Because in Hebrew it's not, again, the the repetition is a normal part of poetic Hebrew. So Yafat Tor Yafat Mar. Okay, verse 18. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. And Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. ויאהב יעקב את רחל, ויאמר, אבדך 7 שנים ברחל, בתך הקטנה. So, while literally Aleph Hey Bet means to love, and you can certainly translate it that way, it can also be translated as preferred, right? This love and hate can also be a matter of preference. So, Esav Saniti, I have hated Esav, can mean I disfavor him. And, right, so Yaakov loved Rachel, Yaakov preferred Rachel. Um, yeah. Rachel Vayomer, and he said, Evedcha, I will serve you, I will work for you, Sheva Shanim, 7 years, Be Rachel, right? Literally in Rachel, for Rachel. Bitcha HaKetana, your younger daughter, your small daughter. Bitcha HaKetana, the smaller of your daughters. Um, or smallest, really. Okay. Verse 19. And Lavan said, It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me. Okay. Lavan said, It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. Okay. And Lavan said, It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to another man. Stay with me. Vayomer Lavan, Tov titi otah lach, mititi otah leish acher. Shiva imadi. Okay, so Vayomer Lavan, he said, Tov titi otah. So titi is my giving that I give. It's in the infinitive, and it's used again repetitively, right? Tov titi. It's my giving her, right? Lach, and the reason why it switches from the masculine lacha to lach is because of the cancellation marks. Now, what you want to do with the places where the cancellation does that, that's up to you, but the cancellations causes that to happen. Mititi otah, from me giving her, right? This is the direct object marker because it's ota, not ita. Leish acher, to another man. Shiva, so this is the command form of yashav, yud, shin, bet. Yeah, to settle, to stay. Shiva imadi, with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. So Jacob worked for Rachel, 7 years, but they appeared to him like a few days because of his love for her. ויעבוד יעקב ברחל 7 שנים, ויהיו בעיניו כימים חדים באהבתו אותה. So, ויעבוד, and he served, right? It is a little strange. It's the chisaron. Yaakov Rachel for Rachel, right? Sheva Shanim, 7 years. V'yu be'enav, and they were in his eyes, Kiyamim Chadim, right? So literally to one's days, a Chadim is it's the plural of one, right? So a few days, some days, right? Short, yeah, yamim achadim. This word achadim does show up several times in the Bible. Let's see how many times. Achadim, 4 times achadim. Let me see. Once la achadim. Yeah, those are all the times that it's achadim. First time in Genesis 11, Devarim achadim, a few words. Okay. Be'ahavato, because of his love, in that he loved Otah, her. Okay. Next verse, 21. Then Jacob said to Lavan, "Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her." Okay. Then Jacob said to Lavan, "Give me my wife, my time is completed, and I want to make love to her." That's explicit. And Jacob said to Lavan, "Give me my wife, for my days are completed, that I may come to her." Vayomer Yaakov el Lavan, "Hava et ishti ki mal'u yamai va'avoa eleha." Yeah, it is pretty explicit. So, Vayomer Yaakov, so Yaakov said, El Lavan, this preposition with the aleph, to Lavan, Hava. So, Hav means to give, and this is the command, right? I guess it's Hey Vav Bet, Yud Hey Bet. Again, there is that whole question of 2-letter roots, 3-letter roots, right? So Hava et Ishti, give my wife. Yeah, hand over, kind of. Give my wife. Ki mal'u yamai. Male literally means to fill, right? Mem lamed aleph. To fill days means to, I guess, I mean, it means that it fulfilled, I guess, is right. Yeah. Mal'u yamai. My days have completed, maybe, might be a better way. Ve'avoa aleha. So, bet vav aleph, written bemilui. Didn't really expect that. Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit explicit. I guess you could translate it less explicitly. Literally, I will I will uh, go to her. Yeah, that I may go to her. How did Chabad translate it? That I may come to her. Okay. Um, Maybe I would translate it. I would be with her, and yeah, that's the preposition with the aleph there. Okay. 22. And Lavan gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. So Lavan brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. So Lavan gathered all the people of the place and he made a feast. Vayas ye'esof Lavan et kol anshe hamakom vayas mishte. So again, it's using that asaf, which we had previously speaking about the herds coming together or gathering, and it's using that exact same um, language over again. You know, the repetition in the Hebrew. Lavan et kol anshe hamakom, right? All the men of the place, right? Um, Anashim is in a construct form with makom. And again, I will remind you that hamakom actually is a way of referring to God. Um, so there is a slight implication. I mean, people would certainly probably disagree with you, but you could say you could make an argument that it's the men of God. V'yas mishte. So lasot is to make or to do. Right? Ayin sin he. Mishte literally means comes from drinking, shoteh, right? And mishte is a feast, but it's, I mean, literally it's a drinking feast. But in English, we don't do that. Who is calling me? Okay, verse 23. Now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob made love to her. Um, and it came to pass in the evening that Laban took his daughter Leah and he brought her to him, and he came to her. Vayehi ba'ar erev, vayikach et Leah bito, vayave otah elav, vayavo eleha. So, Vehi Ba'ar Erev, right? And they are saying there is an article in the vocalization there. It gets kind of weird with when the first letter is an ayin, is a guttural. Um, so, and it was in the evening. In that evening, I guess, maybe. Um, Veikach et Leah. So, usually when you say somebody took a woman, it means married her, but here it means took her, as in, I guess, accompanied her. Um, Bito, his daughter, Vayave, so caused her to come, he brought, Otah, her, Elav, preposition with the aleph, right, to him, um, doesn't say to Jacob, but it's implied there. Vayavo Eleha, and he came to her, right? Okay, 24. And Lavan gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. And Lavan gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. And Lavan gave Zilpah his maidservant to his daughter Leah as a maidservant. Vayiten Lavan la et Zilpah shifchato leleah bito shifcha. Okay. So Vayiten and gave Lavan to her et Zilpah. He gave Zilpah to her. Shifchato, his shifcha, and shifcha is the feminine form of eved, of slave. Leleah bito, to Leah, his daughter, shifcha, as a maidservant. Yeah, I mean, again, the repetition and in the Hebrew isn't nearly as strange as it would seem in the English. Okay, 25. So it came to pass in the morning that behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me?" Um, when morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" And it came to pass in the morning, and behold, she was Leah. So he said to Laban, "What is this that you have done to me? Did I not work for you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?" Uh, ויהי בבוקר, והנה היא לאה. ויאמר אל לבן, מה זאת עשית לי? הלא ברחל עבדתי עמך, ולמה רימיתני? So, ויהי בבוקר, it was in the morning, and there is an article there, it was in the morning. Vehine, behold, he Leah. And so the pronoun again is being used as the verb to be. It was Leah. He Leah. She was Leah. Vayomer el Lavan. And he said to Lavan, preposition with Aleph, Mazot asita. So literally, what is this that you have done? And this is a very common uh, way of speaking in Hebrew. Mazot asita. Why? What have you done? Li. Hello, and so the hey there is turning it into a question. Is it not hello? Berachel avadeti imach, that I worked with you, for you, literally with you. And again, it is the cancellations, although honestly, it's a weird place to put the cancellation stress, but I guess that's where it goes. Um, and that's it's turning into the feminine. The lama rimitani. So lama means why, right? It's a question. Rimitani ramaut is resh mem taf, resh mem hey. Um, to cast, yeah, I guess. Ramaut is deception. I didn't realize. Yeah. Oh, so they're saying that PL, which is the intensive form, is to beguile or deal treacherously with. Late Hebrew in derivatives, resh mem aleph. Compare Arabic ram, sluggish or backward. Become putrid or corrupt. Hmm. Yeah. So it is what it is. Okay. Um, definitely. I mean, it means why have you deceived me? I guess you could say that it's some form of have you thrown me off or something like that. Okay, 26. And Lavan said, "It must not be done so in our country or place to give the younger before the firstborn." Lavan replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one." And Lavan said, "It is not done in our place to give the younger one before the firstborn." ויאמר לבן, לא יעשה כן במקומנו, לתת הצעירה לפני הבכירה. Okay, so Lavan said, lo ya'aseh. This is the nifal, it's the passive. It is not to be done, of to do or to make. Chen, such a thing. So, chen. Bimkomtenu, bimkomenu, in our place, right? Makom is a place, in our place, in this place. Um, and makom is written bemiloi, interestingly. Latet, infinitive of to give. Ha seira, so seir means young. Lifnei ha bechira, and bechor in the is the masculine is the firstborn. Bechira is a firstborn girl, I guess. Um, yeah, yeah. Bachar is first fruit, firstborn. Yeah. I mean, he, yeah, he says the firstborn, not the elder. How'd they translate it? The younger before the firstborn. Yeah, they also did that. NIV does before the older one. Would have. That's not how I would have done it. I would have done firstborn. Okay, 27. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve me with me still another 7 years. Um, Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of work. Complete the wedding week of this one, and we will give you this one too for the work that you will render me for another 7 years. Uh, so let's read the actual verse and maybe we'll come back to the Rashi. מלא שבועה זאת, וניתנה לך גם את זאת בעבודה אשר תעבוד עמדי עוד 7 שנים אחרות. So, um, yeah, again, I think this is a case of the repetition in the Hebrew not translating very well. Because when he says finish this week, maybe I would translate it 7 days instead of saying week, even though it is Shavua is a week. Um, let's see what Rashi says. Shavua, this is in the construct. Davuk שהרי נקוד בחטף שבוע של זאת, והן 7 ימים המשתה בתלמוד ירושלמי במועד קטן, ואי אפשר לומר שבוע ממש, שאם כן היה צריך לנקד בפתח השן. אוקיי. ועוד ששבוע לשון זכר, כי דכתיב 7 שבועות תספר לך, לפיכך אין משמע שבוע אלא שבעה. So Rashi is saying that because it is written bechisaron, this is with a kubutz, not with a shuruk, and there it's the masculine, and since it's there's a shva under the shin, it's not shavua like how we would read it if it was a week. So he's saying that it's actually seven. So I guess I would translate this 7 days. See, it's 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 an alliteration. It's poetic in the Hebrew, using Shavua this way, and like Sheva Shanim, 7 years. So I would probably, instead of translating this as a week, I would say I would probably translate it as fulfill this week, this these seven, and maybe put in brackets week days, right? Shuaz zot, right? These seven, this group of seven, zot. Um, although zot is in the feminine, so that thing where Rashi says, "Why doesn't this have a hey?" I mean, zot is feminine. Vednitna, and will be given, right? Will be given. I'm not sure this is in the call. Nitna, so Natan, nun, tough, nun, right? And is it in the Hefal? It would be in the Nefal, sorry. It would be the imperfect. Well, oh, this is a cohortive, first person collective, and we will give you the Nitna. Yeah, it is in the Paul. It's in the simple. And we will give you. Nitna. Uh, Niton with a hey cohortive. Okay. Yeah. And we shall give you. Yeah, benitna. Lecha to you. Gam zot. Also this one. Oh. Malesh zot. Ah. I see. So the zot is actually talking about Leah, not the week. So it's not this week. It's the week of this one. The seven for this one. So finish the seven for this one. So I guess yeah, that makes sense why everybody's talking very specifically about the 7 days, because obviously he worked for her for 7 years already. Um, yeah. Gam et zot ba'avoda asher ta'avod, for the work that you will do. Again, the repetition in the Hebrew is emphasis and alliteration. Asher ta'avod imadi. Od sheva shanim acherot. Another 7 years. Again, this is an obviously poetic language, I would say. Verse 28. Then Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, so he gave him his daughter Rachel as wife also. Um, and Yaakov, or Jacob, did so, he finished the week with Leah, and then Lavan gave his daughter Rachel, or Rachel, to be his wife. And Jacob did so, and he completed the week of this one, and he gave his daughter Rachel to him as a wife. V'yas Yaakov ken, v'yimale shvuah zot, v'yiten lo et Rachel bito lo leisha. So, V'yas Yaakov ken, he did so, right? V'yimale shvuah, again, the shvuah is the same, this of 7. Of this one. Yeah. V'yimale shvuah zot, the 7 of this one. V'yiten lo et Rachel, so he gave him Rachel, Bito, his daughter, lo leisha, for him to be a wife, as a wife. Okay. 29. And Lavan made his maid Bilhah, gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a maid. Guessing it's very similar language as the other one. Lavan gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. And Lavan gave his daughter Rachel his maidservant Bilhah for a maidservant. Veiten Lavan lerachel bito et Bilhah shifchato la leshifcha. So very similar language, right? He gave to her his daughter Bilhah, shifchato, his maidservant, it's the feminine of slave, la leshifcha, to her as a shifcha. Yeah, it's not the exact same way of phrasing it, but it is similar. Okay, verse 30. Then Yaakov also went in to Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Lavan still another 7 years. Okay. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Lavan another 7 years. Uh, and he came also to Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah, and he worked with him yet another 7 years. Yet another 7 years. Scripture compares the other ones to the first one. Just as he had worked for him during the first ones faithfully, so did he the other ones, even though okay. I mean, okay. ויבוא גם אל רחל ויאהב גם את רחל מלאה ויעבוד עמו עוד 7 שנים אחרות. So ויבוא גם אל רחל. He also came to Rachel. ויאהב גם את רחל. So again, I would probably translate this as preferred. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of strange to say gam el, gam et. Again, this is poetic language. Also, right? Um, I would translate ve'yehav, even though it is loved, as preferred. Rachel, mila'ah, from Leah. Actually, at the beginning, I didn't realize that was the proper name, but yeah, it is the proper name, Mila. So yeah, I would definitely. He preferred her to Leah, is how I would translate it. V'yavod imo od sheva shanim, and he worked with him for him another 7 years. Acherot, od acherot, right? So it's repeating still another, and I guess that's why um, Rashi darshans it there, um, is because yeah, it's Od and Acherot. Yeah, still another 7 years makes sense. Yeah, I guess. Okay, 31. When the Lord saw that Rachel was unloved or hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. And the Lord saw that Leah was hated, so he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. V'yar Havaya ki snua Leah v'yiftach et Rahma v'Rachel akara. Okay, so Vayar and saw Havaya, it's the Tetragrammaton. Ki snua Leah. So literally, snua means hated, right? Uh, Soneh means to hate. Lehov means to love. But I would again still translate all of this as, instead of love and hate, as preferred and did not prefer. Um, and so it makes sense to me that they translated it as unloved. Snua Leah. Veyiftach, right? Petach, petachat is to open. A door is a petach as well. So he opened et Rahma. Rechem is a womb. Rachamim is so there. It is related to Rechem is Rachamim is um, mercy. Verachel akara, and and the hay is aspirated so that you know that it's not, Rachma is not a feminine form of Rechem. Rachma is her Rechem. And that's why there is a dagesh in the hay. Rachel akara. And Rachel akara, ayin kofresh, is, I think the root is to uproot. Offshoot. Oh, I might be thinking of, what am I thinking of? Uproot. It might be olive kofresh. I often get my ayin and my olives confused. No, that's not a word either. So let's try ayin kofresh. Might be a, yeah, ikar, to uproot. Yeah, lahi ikar. Yeah, so it is the same root. Thought so. I mean, the word akara is, as a barren woman, is used a lot. Thinking of Lamentations, 12 times. Oh no, it was Isaiah 54. I was thinking of Roni akara. Is it used in Lamentations? I guess not. Yeah, barren. A barren woman is called an akara. Okay, 32. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called him his name Reuven. See, a son. Yeah, Reuven. Yeah, look, there's a son. For she said, the Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuven. Reuven sounds like the Hebrew for he has seen my misery. The name means see a son. Um, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben. For she said, "Because the Lord has seen my affliction, for now my husband will love me." Our sages explained, she said, and the son of father-in-law who sold his birthright to Jacob. This is Reuben. Did not sell Joseph. It's very midrashic. I'm not going to. Okay. ותהר לאה ותלד בן ותקרא שמו ראובן כי אמרה כי ראה הוויה בעוני. Interesting. So yeah, Reuven is Ra'a Be'oni. Interesting. Ki ata Yehavani Ishi. Okay. Tahar, Taf He Resh means to conceive. Leah, Veteled means to give birth to, and she gave birth. Ben, a son. Vetikra, and she called Shemo, his name, Reuven. Ki Amra, because she said, Ki Ra'ah Havaya, because God saw, right? Ra'ah, so Reuven, Ra'ah. Be'oni, so Ain Nun Yud is affliction. And Binyamin, right? The name Benjamin is actually Ben Oni, right? The son of my affliction. So this word Inui, right? Affliction, misery. A fast is called a Ta'anit, and on Yom Kippur we are commanded to afflict our souls. So yeah, I mean you can use your concordance for more of that. Ki ata. So this is with an ayin. Et means time. Ata means this time or now, at this moment, right? Ki ata yahavani, and again, I would probably translate this as prefer, but it's literally love. Ishi, my husband or my man. My husband. Reminds me of the song Jolene. Uh, okay, 33. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am unloved," hated, literally hated, "he has given me this son also." And she called his name Shimon, literally heard. Yeah, yeah. So she conceived. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one also." So she named him Simeon or Shimon. Probably means one who hears. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she said, "Since the Lord has heard that I am hated, he gave me this one also, too." So she named him Shimon or Simeon. Okay. Or Simon, I guess. V'tahar od v'teled ben v'tomer ki shama havaya ki snua anochi v'yiten li gam et ze v'tikra shamo Shimon. Okay, so V'tahar, she conceived. Od, again. V'teled, and she gave birth. Ben, a son. V'tomer, and she said. Ki sham'a, right? Shin mem ayin is to listen, right? To hear. Havaya, the tetragrammaton. Ki snua anochi, because I am hated or unloved. I would probably translate it as unloved, but literally hated. Anochi is the more formal way of saying I in the first person. Vayiten li gam et ze. So, and he gave me also this, right? This son. V'tikra shemo, and she called his name Shimon, which has Shin Mem Ayin in it to hear. Um, and I mean, I don't think it is completely irrelevant that Sin Nun Aleph Shin Mem Ayin. They're all three different letters, but they're all um, letters which are in some way similar. Okay, 34. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me because I have borne him three sons. Therefore, his name was called Levi, literally attached. Okay? Um, Again, she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me because I have borne him three sons. So he was named Levi. Levi sounds like and may be derived from the Hebrew for attached. Okay? And she conceived again and bore a son, and she said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, for I have borne him three sons. Therefore, he he named him Levi. He named him Levi. He was named Levi. Interesting. Let's see what the Hebrew is. V'tar od v'teled ben v'tomer ata hapam yilave ishi elai כי ילדתי לו שלושה בנים, על כן קרא שמו לוי. Okay, so Vitar, and she conceived. Od, again. Viteled ben, and she gave birth to a son. Vitomer, and she said, Ata, now, right? Et means time. Ata means now. Atapam, this time, right? So Pam is iteration, like as in time, as in how many times are you going to do this, right? I'm going to do it two times, Pamaim, right? Or shlosh pamim, three times, right? Pa'am is, yeah. So atahapam. So this particular time, last um atapam yilave ishi. So yeah, the root um lamed vav hey, to join. Yeah, attach, join, attend. Um, melave can also mean to um, a lavaya is when you escort someone. Um, it can include, I mean, at a funeral, right? A lavaya is when you escort. Um, but yeah, it is to join, to attach. Okay. Yelave ishi. So my son, my husband will become attached. Yeah, it's in the nifal. Yelave. Eli, president of the Aleph to me. He yeladeti lo, because I have borne him. I gave birth to. Right? Yeladeti lo, for him. Shlosha banim, three sons. Alken, therefore, kara, he was called, um, yeah, Shamo Levi, his name Levi. And Rashi brings, um, uh, I wondered why it is written Kara, right? Shamo Levi, right? While concerning all the others is written, and she named. there is an Agadic midrash in Deuteronomy Rabbah which relates how the Holy One, blessed be He, sent Gabriel, and he brought him Levi before him, and he gave him his name, and he gave him the 24 priestly gifts. And because he accompanied him, Lavahu, with gifts, he named him Levi. Okay. Um, so I guess this is in the Deuteronomy Rabbah, Devarim Rabbah. Okay. And I believe this is the last verse. 35. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, or Yehuda, literally praise. Then she stopped bearing. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Yehuda. Yehuda sounds like and may be derived from the Hebrew for praise, lehodot, right? Yeah. Hodu Lashem Kitov Kilolam Chasto. Very, very common verse in statement in Psalms, right? Give thanks to the Lord because His grace endures forever, or His loving kindness endures forever. Hodu. Then she stopped having children. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she said, this time I will thank the Lord. Therefore she named him Yehuda, and then she stopped bearing. V'tahar od, v'teled ben, v'tomer hapam ode et Havaya, al ken kara shemo Yehuda, v'ta'amod miledet. Okay, so Vatahar, she conceived. Od, another time, again. V'teled ben, and she gave birth to a son. V'tomer, hapam, and she said, this time, I don't know why they translated it as now. I would translate it this time. Hapam, this time. Odeh, right? So this is I will praise from Lehodot, right? And so this root Hoda'ah, Yud Dalad Hey, to cast. So generally we say that Hoda'ah has three meanings: to confess, to praise. I always forget the three: to praise, to confess, um, to praise, to confess, and to celebrate. Right. So though, since all of Jews are called Yehudim from that root, right, it is what Jews do, which is to to give thanks, to praise, and to admit. Give thanks, praise, and admit. Yeah. Ritual worship. Okay. So Odeh et Havaya, right? I will praise God. I will thank God. I will confess to God. Yeah, to thank. Alken, therefore, Kara, she called, with the hey, she called, Shemo, his name, Yehuda, right? Judah, Yehuda. V'ta'amod miledet. So literally, Ein Mem Daled means to stand, but she stopped makes sense as well, right? That is how you would basically say it, from giving birth. Yep, and that is it for tonight. I don't actually have any people watching, I am going to say good night. Good night. Oh, I forgot Safania 3:9. Shouldn't forget Safania 3:9. Ki az epoch el amim safa berra likro chulam beshem havaya laovdo Shechem echad. For then I will turn over, I will restore el amim to the peoples, safa berra, winnowed pure language, likro chulam, so that they may all call beshem havaya, in the name of the Tetragrammaton, leovdo, to serve him, Shechem echad, with one shoulder,